Okay. Hi, everybody. Let's go ahead and call the work session to order. Josh, I'll just turn it right over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hopefully didn't interrupt your dinner too much. Just wanted to run through the agenda real quick. Won't take long. 5 items tonight. Item number 1 is the reconstruct the front porch on 22nd Street. In the late correspondence package that was sent out to you on Friday, there were some comments of support from Nina. Staff did not have any concerns with this application. We would propose it for the consent agenda unless there's any objections.
Any objections to item number 1 being on consent? Okay, great. Let's go ahead. Oh,
I kind of want to hear it.
you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for Josh before we?
No, I just think it's a contributing house and it's
Sure.
got a front porch
Yeah.
on it. I think that's something that we should take seriously and listen to.
Fair enough. Yeah.
No questions though.
Okay.
Great.
Great.
We'll go ahead and hear item number 1 then.
Item number 2, we will hear, that is the item last month that there was the conflicting historic surveys, and we have some information in the project report and some guidance for you. So we'll definitely hear that one. Item number 3, I would recommend moving to the front of the agenda, just as an order of business. It isn't a public hearing, it's ratification of findings. So you don't need to open it up for public testimony or anything. So I would just recommend at the beginning of the hearing, moving that one up front, get it out of the way.
Great.
I've got a question on that one, Josh.
Okay.
I don't recall seeing a ratification for findings for approvals before on our agenda. Is that something new or is there something special about this case?
It's probably just something that we don't do a ton of. You know, in either case, whether it's staff recommended approval and it was denied, or staff recommended denial and it was approved. In either case, we don't have findings in the record that support that decision. So we go back, draft those based on your discussion and bring them to you. This was a case where staff recommended denial and it was ultimately approved. So I think it's just kind of a slightly unique situation. But I mean, we should bring any findings that weren't in the project report back to you for approval.
Okay, I like that.
Item number 4, we will hear. And item number 5, we will hear. So with that, that's all I had. I just thought I would mention our senior historic planner resigned, unfortunately is no longer with the city. So we are in search of a historic preservation planner again. Kind of looking at how to broaden our scope, really get some high quality candidates in here, hopefully to have that staff back up soon. But you're stuck with me in the meantime. So thank you for your patience. And with that, I don't have anything else.
Fantastic. Any questions for Josh? Okay, great. We'll go ahead and call the work session and we'll see you all at 6 for our hearing. Good evening, everybody. Today is the 28th of March, 2022, and this is the scheduled time and place for the Historic Preservation Commission meeting. I am Chairperson Montoto, and I now call the meeting to order. Christina, would you please call the roll?
Weaver. Montoto.
Here.
Malloy.
Here.
Pape.
Here.
Kintai. Otter.
Here.
Husky.
Here.
Maroney.
Here.
6 present, 2 absent.
Thank you. Have all commission members had a chance to review the minutes from the February 28th meeting? Does anyone have any comments or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, I will now take a motion on the February 28th, 2022 minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Koski. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Christina, would you please call the roll?
Otter.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Montoto.
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Husky.
Aye.
Pape.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. We don't have any items for tonight's consent agenda. However, I do want to start with item number 3 on our agenda this evening. DRH 22-0026 Jeffrey Wallace at 1612 North 16th Street. This is discussion and ratification of findings for approval that was approved at the February 28th, 2022 hearing. Do I have a motion to approve these ratification of findings?
I'd move to approve DRH 2022-00026.
Thank you, Commissioner Otter. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Pape. Christina, would you please call the roll?
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Montoto.
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Husky.
Abstain.
Pape.
Aye.
5 in favor, 1 abstain.
Thank you. The first item on tonight's agenda is item number 1, DRH 22-00022, Amy Allgaier at 1402 North 22nd Street. Josh, can we please have the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The property at 1402 North 22nd Street has applied tonight for a certificate of appropriateness to construct a new front porch on property in the expanded north end, and it is a contributing structure. The property is located at the northeast corner of Limp and 22nd. It is a large standard size corner lot accessed from the alley with a detached garage and detached curb gutter and sidewalk along both 22nd Street and Limp Streets. Currently, the house has a small concrete stoop and steps extending into the front yard. The applicant has submitted some documentation that these are deteriorating and they would like to replace and slightly expand that front porch. So the proposal would widen that concrete front stoop to 18 feet in width and 6 feet in depth, and construct some new stairs. Front elevation shows that expanded concrete porch to the left of the door if you're looking at the property from the street. Some photos of the existing house showing that existing concrete stoop and brick steps that would be proposed to be removed and replaced. With that, staff has recommended approval of the application and found that it complies with the residential guidelines. And I would stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present?
I am.
Hi, please state your name and address for the record, and you have 20 minutes.
Well, this is Amy Allgaier. I live at 1402 North 22nd Street. I come before you fairly often representing other people's houses, but tonight I'm here representing our own house. So I think Josh did a pretty good explanation of what we're proposing. The existing stoop has bricks in the risers, and if you look through the staff report, you can see that that brick's really just crumbling to pieces. So the stoop needs to be replaced. We are hoping to make it a little bit wider, just so we can get a couple of chairs out there. It faces west, so it gets great afternoon sun. And right now we don't really have anywhere out there to sit and chat with our neighbors. So that's the reason for the expansion. That's about it. We made it a little bit lower so that we can avoid having a guardrail around. It technically should have a guardrail around it now because it's that high, but it looks like at some point in the past that guardrail was taken down. So other than the widening the stoop, that's the only change that we've proposed. And I guess I'll just stand for whatever questions you guys might have.
Thank you, Ms. Algar. I'm sorry, we might have some questions from the commission. We had a little bit of trouble hearing you on our end.
Oh, dear.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Please, Commissioner Koski.
Hi, Amy. With the new concrete porch, is that going to be tied to the existing building at all? Is it concrete that's just on its own?
Commissioner Koski, that new porch will have its own footing. We will, because we have a basement wall, we likely will dowel that footing into the basement wall just to secure it a little better than it's secured now. It's falling away from the house currently.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Allgaier? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Is the Registered Neighborhood Association here to testify?
Madam Chair, Nina submitted some comments for me to read into the record, so I'll go ahead and do that now.
Please.
So Nina said, generally, we have concerns about changes that could impact the status of a contributing home. With that being said, we do love a front porch. This one appears quite low profile as well as removable if needed. So if the commission feels confident this modification would not jeopardize the home's contributing status, we support this application.
Fantastic. Thank you. I don't have anyone signed up this evening to testify, but are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Okay. Are there any final questions for staff or the applicant before we offer 5 minutes for rebuttal to the applicant? Okay, Ms. Algar, if you'd like, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, or you can yield your time.
I'll yield my time.
Thank you so much. With that, I will go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing, and we'll consider a motion. We can have a motion, then some discussion. We can just jump into discussion.
I'll start with a motion to have some discussion afterwards. I will move for approval of DRH 22-00022 based on the staff's findings and the conditions listed in the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Koski. Before we take a second, would anyone like to discuss? Okay.
I'll just say,
Sure.
I mean, we should have a second first, actually.
Oh, okay, great.
And then we can have
Would
discussion.
anyone like to second? Oh, thank you, Commissioner Otter. And discussion, please.
I think it's whenever you got a contributing structure and we're adding something to the front of it, I think it's a very significant thing to consider. And normally I wouldn't be a fan of this, but being that it's a concrete stoop that is more or less free from the house, it doesn't involve anything attached to the house. They're not changing the door, they're not changing railings, they're not putting a roof over it. All it is a new set of concrete steps that's a little wider. So I'd be interested to hear what the other commissioners have to say, because I think it's pretty serious when we're dealing with a contributing home and we're adding something to it. So I see it as something that we can approve. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Koski. Would anyone else like to comment?
Madam Chair, I'll just build off of what Commissioner Koski said. I appreciate that they lowered the steps 2 feet so that they don't have to have that guardrail. And I feel like that helps to preserve that facade. And there's nothing that's going to be interfering with, the original look of the house.
Fantastic. Any other comments? Okay, great. Christina, would you please call the roll?
Otter,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Husky,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this evening is item number 2, DRH 22-00025, Jeffrey Wallace at 402 West Pueblo Street. Josh, can we please have the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. This is a continuation from last month. There was some additional information entered into the record at the last minute. So the item was deferred to this month to give some time to evaluate that information. It's a certificate of appropriateness to demolish an existing single-family home and construct a new single-family residence. It is in the North End Historic District, and the historic survey on file with the city indicates it is non-contributing. As a reminder, it's located at the northwest corner of Pueblo and North 4th Street in the East End, the North End, and it is a corner lot. The applicant has proposed to demolish the existing dwelling and garage that's attached by an existing carport and construct a new dwelling with detached garage on the lot. Again, the elevations, it's a single-story structure. They proposed some stone and stucco facades and a low sloping peak gabled roof. Last month, right before the hearing, it was discovered that the historic survey on file with SHPO does conflict with the one on file with the city. The applicant requested contributing or non-contributing status from the city, and we provided the copy on file that we had that indicates that the property is non-contributing. It was discovered that the SHPO copy is marked as contributing. While we don't really have a great explanation for this, it took place back in 1999. There was obviously some confusion. I will point out that the SHPO copy does have the typewritten X typical on the rest of the survey form, whereas the city one is a written in pen in the non-contributing category. Certainly we could have accidentally got a blank form that somebody mistakenly filled out. Is kind of the best explanation we can really offer up. As detailed in the project report, it is the commission's purview to determine status based on these surveys. And that the implications of that are the required findings for demolition of the existing structure, the existing house. If it is determined by this commission to be non-contributing, the threshold for demolition is certainly much easier to gain. You have to meet 3 of the 5 findings for demolition. One of those is that the property is contributing or not. So, we would find that if this is a non-contributing property, they have clearly met the findings for demolition. If the commission determines it to be a contributing property based on the survey on file with SHPO, you may still approve demolition. It just needs to be clearly stated on the record how they have met 3 of those 5 findings. And the one that would likely come into play more with it being contributing is that the demolition would not negatively impact the character of the district. Is kind of, they have not provided a financial analysis, which is one of the findings. So that one is clearly not met. But really it's that impact on the district that the demolition of a contributing home would be the finding that you would need to make a positive finding on in order to approve this proposed demolition. So that's the decision and discussion before you tonight. Before the conflicting surveys arose, staff did recommend approval of the application. And if the commission finds that this is a non-contributing property, we would stand by that recommendation. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Josh?
I have one question. Josh, in some of the documents, it For the application, it states that it's an attached garage. And it doesn't appear to be in the drawing. So are you able to clarify that at all? Or am I
Yeah,
misreading
no,
it?
I can clarify that. Madam Chair, Commissioner Koski, it's attached by a carport. And I think that's illustrated technically, in terms of building code, that's attached because the carport spans the home. So you can see there on the existing site plan, there's a dwelling, there's an open air carport that attaches to the garage. So, detached, for all practical purposes, but technically attached.
Okay, but the proposed structure does not include an attached garage.
It does. Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. No, it does not.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Otter, did you have a question?
Yes, I was interested to know, when we look at surveys, how often does the city go and look at SHPO's copy of the survey versus the city's copy of the survey?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Otter, in my experience, seldom if ever. There's over 3,000 historic surveys on file with the city. This is the first time I've seen conflicting information on those surveys. And we have those on file with the city for convenience. I mean, we look at historic surveys, whether it's through phone call inquiries, email inquiries, people wondering the status of their property multiple times a day. And to kind of cross-check those with the Idaho, with SHPO's database would be fairly time-consuming. So very rarely, if ever, would be my answer.
Any other questions for Josh? Okay, great. And I guess Josh should clarify, are we hearing from the applicant tonight, or are we simply, yes?
Yeah, Madam,
Okay,
it's
great.
a full hearing. With
Okay,
public-
fantastic. Thank you. Is the applicant present? Yes. Fantastic. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have 20 minutes.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Kirsten Wallace with Wallace Custom Design and Renovation. Address is 816 North Haines Street, Boise, Idaho, 83712. And I'm here on behalf of the applicant, HPH Properties LP. I just want to start and thank you very much for reconsidering this application. First of all, I just want to start where staff left off. And some preliminary matters, I did submit a written memorandum, which I supplied to Josh just prior to the hearing with some additional evidence. And I'll touch on that later in my presentation. But with regard to ever having had this happen before, Wallace Custom Design and Renovation has, I can't even tell you how many applications we've submitted before the commission. Wallace Custom Design has been in business renovating homes in the North End since 2000, which is just after the surveys were conducted and just prior to the passage of the ordinance that established the district. And in my experience, same with staff, I have never seen this happen, and nor have I ever been provided with any conflicting survey that might be on file at SHPO. So it's the first time I've seen this as well. And I want to point out to the commission that the provision on demolition specifically refers to the survey on file with the Planning and Development Services Department. It does not allow reference to any other survey that might be in existence. And while we respect the work of the commission, and especially Wallace Custom Design's work, which has been mindful of the historic nature of the properties that it renovates, we would submit to the commission that we would never do anything in contravention to denigrate the integrity of the district or of a particular property. So turning to the statute or the code itself, It's City Code 110304.20 B7B sub 3A 1, which says that the applicant is entitled to rely on the survey on file in the Planning and Development Services Office. And that provision is unambiguous. So again, the finding of this SHPO survey should not necessarily influence the commission's decision. Furthermore, staff did not uncover any objective evidence explaining the reason for the discrepancy. And it's equally as likely that the document on file with the city is quote unquote the original document. No one's brought forth any evidence that that one of these two competing documents is the original versus the other. Another point I want to touch upon is that a lot of times we see, the age of the home, it's old, so therefore it's contributing. Well, I would submit that that's not the only factor here. The historic preservation guidelines indicate that the home must have been present during the period of significance and possess historic integrity reflecting its character at that time. Boise City Code 11-12-04 is where that provision is found. The period of significance for the residential historic district in the North End begins in 1878 and derives its significance and character from groupings of 20th century architecture. And styles typical include Queen Anne, Tudor Revival, Colonial Revival, Ranch, and of course, minimal traditional. It's not necessarily a style, but it's sort of like default style when it doesn't really meet any of the characteristics of one of the more ornate styles. This particular building was not built until 1940, and in 1941, the attached garage was added. It's not necessarily what I see typical of a minimal traditional house present in the North End Historic District, namely because it's described as having aluminum siding, concrete basement, asphalt roofing, and those materials are not representative of buildings that were built during the period of significance. It's possible that this was simply an infill property given its date of construction, use of materials, and its small size, which is functionally obsolete given its small footprint of 633 square feet of living space that is improved above ground. In the memorandum I submitted to the commissioners before the hearing, I provided some links to some photographs of typical minimal traditional homes. And you normally see sort of a asymmetrical front facade, windows that are double hung or multi-pane, typical to the style, and sort of even though it's maybe not ornate, there's still a defining facade, typically represented by some sort of a bump out or a front porch or something of that nature. This has none of those characteristics. Staff indicated also that the commission may still approve a finding of demolition provided the applicant meets the findings under that city code provision. I would disagree. That it would be procedurally improper at this point to consider a change in status. There's no application for a change in status before the commission. And code section 110509.7 prescribes the procedure for doing that. And that is not what is before the commission. And there's also a caveat that says, any building that is located within the designated historic district may on its 50th anniversary be deemed contributing if it wasn't so before that. But there's a caveat for that as well, and it requires a survey and public process as outlined in that provision. That process is not what we're here for. We're here on an application for a certificate of appropriateness. So I would submit that the commission needs to decide this application based on the criteria set forth in section 1103.20 B7B sub 3A. And we've met those findings as outlined by staff in the report based on the survey on file with the Planning and Development Department. And last, I want to talk about the reliance by all parties involved in this case, including the government, which would be the city. The designation of the building as non-contributing was publicly marketed as such by the real estate agent representing the seller of this property. And the homeowner, when he filled out the, it's called the RE25, the condition of the property report, that owner also said that, yes, it's in a historic district, but it's non-contributing. And then before purchasing the property and before even drawing up plans, Wallace Custom Design and Renovation also verified the condition of this property and its non-contributing status. And I have an email from the planning staff that says, yep, non-contributing, go ahead, should be good to go as long as you comply with district guidelines, which I think Wallace and the draftsman did. So the ramifications of the classification as non-contributing was well known and verified before this application was submitted and before the house was even purchased. At this point, financial resources have been committed to develop plans based upon the property's designation in reliance upon code section 1103.20 B7B3A1. And I would submit that the applicant should not be penalized for the government's mistake in this case, because that's clearly what this is. This survey was not revealed until the 11th hour, and the applicant, the city, and I would hesitate, or I would submit that most likely members of the commission were not aware of the SHPO survey in existence in some other building that no one checks. So while the city and the state may impose land restrictions to enhance quality of life by preserving the character and desirable aesthetic features of certain neighborhoods, the impact of restrictions have to be considered in the factual context. And here, reclassifying this building when there's no application before the commission or a request to do so, and there's been no member of the public that has submitted any opposition to this project, would effectively penalize only the applicant in this case, and it would seriously interfere with the applicant's primary expectation concerning the use of the property, given its obsolescence and state of disrepair. I submitted photographs that were on file with the multiple listing service showing the deterioration of the siding, the deterioration of the roof, and we're not sure about the interior of the property as there is a renter there currently, and we've been granted limited access to preview the inside. So the property would likely not have been purchased had it been contributing, and its status as a non-contributing property was a factor that figured into the purchase decision. So I would submit to the commission that without a full survey of the properties in the district at this point in time, given the passage of 20 some odd years since all of these surveys were done, that it would be improper, and it would be a improper use of your regulatory authority to reclassify this property at this hearing or at any hearing, given the clear parameters of the code section that entitles the applicant, the city, and everyone involved to rely upon the record of survey on file at Planning and Development Services. So we respectfully request that the Historic Commission approve the application for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the existing building and construct a single-family residence on property in an R1CH single-family residential with historic overlay zone. And with that, I will answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Is anyone from NENA here to testify this evening?
Madam Chair, again, I have some written comments from Nina to read into record. Before that, though, I will say in your late correspondence you received on Friday, there is some information from the applicant with the MLS listing and some statements. The legal memo she referenced, I did not receive until just before the hearing, and I have not had time to look into that. But with that being said, here are Nina's comments. As was our testimony last month, aside from a few quibbles on design, we support this application. The conflicting records adds to this home's contributing status is extremely unfortunate and a testament to the desperate and urgent need for an updated comprehensive survey of the North End Historic District. The owners of this property purchased the home with the understanding that it was non-contributing and acted in good faith based on the city's information. To deny their application on the basis of this conflict at this juncture would be unfair.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public tonight wishing to testify on this item?
Oh, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
This is Brittany Sigliano, 403 North Mobley Drive, Boise 83712. This evening, I will be testifying on behalf of Preservation Idaho. With regards to this project, it is an absolute series of unfortunate events. However, we have seen discrepancies like this come before the commission before. While they are few and far between, fortunately, and rare, you do have a survey before you from the State Historic Preservation Office of Idaho that is typed and not handwritten. I would encourage the commission to accept that as it is part of the record, and value the typed legal document that's before you as opposed to a handwritten document. This is a clear reason, and I will be testifying later, I'll be a broken record by the end of the night. This is a very clear reason why it's so important that the city must finally take upon itself doing a resurvey of our historic districts. This is unfortunate for the neighborhood and for the homeowner. However, I will say this is still not a reason for demolition. This house does have a contributing factor to the neighborhood as a whole. And while we do look at homes individually, it's important to look at the impact that a demolition of a home in a historic district has on the district of a whole. I would also say that this house is not obsolete because of its size. It's more important than ever to have some of these smaller square foot, smaller footprint homes for people like the renter that they have right now. And again, not being obsolete as there is a renter in that property. For these reasons and several others, but I won't take the time, I request that you deny the application for demolition. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any other members of the public tonight wishing to testify? Okay. Are there any final questions for staff or the applicant before the applicant has time for rebuttal? Okay, Ms. Wallace, if you'd like, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, commissioners. Just 2 things in response to the Preservation Idaho witness. It is indeed unfortunate that this competing survey has been unearthed. However, the applicant should not be penalized. This is the government's mistake, and the government should remedy it. And I agree with what Preservation Idaho recommends, and that is to redo a survey of the entire North End. It's been over 20 years. And if there are more of these errant SHPO surveys, they probably are out there and haven't been found. And to penalize this applicant because this SHPO survey was found, that is unfair. There was a reference made to the legal document. There's no evidence as to which document is quote unquote the legal document. We don't know which document is the right one, but the code says that everyone is entitled to rely on the document that's on file with the Planning and Development Services. And that's the one that says the home is non-contributing. And then finally, there's been discussion about the impact of demolition on the district as a whole. Again, there's no evidence before the commission regarding the impact of this demolition on the district as a whole. I don't know what percentage of properties are contributing and non-contributing. And there's been no testimony or evidence regarding that, or what the effect of demolition of this particular property would have on the district, especially since the record of survey on file with the Planning and Zoning Commission, Planning and Development Services says it's non-contributing. So unless there's evidence presented regarding that, I don't think the commission can make a determination regarding the impact of demolition on the district as a whole. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any other questions.
Any final questions for Ms. Wallace? Okay, thank you so much. With that, I will go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing. And I personally would like to ask legal a question. I suppose, can you speak to the commission's power on determining contributing status based on the survey that was presented from SHPO? Do we have the authority, as was mentioned in the Preservation Idaho testimony, do we have the authority to accept that as findings to deny this application?
I'd have to do a little more research to determine that. This is a pretty rare instance. I know we deferred this until from last meeting, but I could look into that question for you. And
well, I suppose we can have some discussion, and I don't know if that's helpful in giving you some time. And the aforementioned code was 11-03.20B 7B sub A sub 1. I think I could have written it down wrong. But I would love to have some discussion from the commission on this, because this is a very rare circumstance, and I would like to hear what my fellow commissioners have to say.
Madam Chair, I'll get started.
Please, Commissioner Koski.
I think this is a terrible situation to be in. A lot of us up here are homeowners as well and have bought homes and been in a situation where you have to rely on the processes of the government to do what we need to do. If we're remodeling it, if we're changing it, any of those kind of things. And based on the evidence that's been presented today and in the packet, the homeowner and the builders have gone through that process and given the answers that they asked for. And while that is contradictory to the SHPO documentation, that's not the process for the applicant to go through. It doesn't say contact SHPO to see if it's contributing. It says contact your city government. So I will be in favor of approving this because of that. It's a terrible error. I'd hate to see a contributing house go, but they've gone through the process and we've given them the answers as a city, and that would be my reasons for approving it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have to say, I completely agree with Commissioner Koski on this. Like, they went through the process. The city said that it was non-contributing. They did everything right based on it being non-contributing. It's unfortunate that SHPO has a very different survey on record, but it doesn't require them to ask SHPO for the record, and nobody really does in the past. So I don't know why we would have expected them to do it this time.
Thank you, Commissioner Otter.
and just a legal point of order here, if I may.
Oh, please.
According to our code, it says, and I'm in section 11.3.4.20, 20A, 1A3, and it says the planning staff shall confirm the contributing or non-contributing classification of the property. So based on that, I know it's kind of vague and opaque, but based on that, that would suggest that whatever the planning staff had on file would be the appropriate one to rely on.
Thank you, legal. Any other comments or a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move I'll move for DRH 22-00025 for approval based on staff's report and finding no error in the applicant's process to get approval for the project.
Thank you, Commissioner Koski. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Maroney. Christina, will you please call the roll?
Otter,
Aye.
Malloy,
Abstain.
Montoto,
No.
Maroney.
Aye.
Koski,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
4 in favor, 1 abstain, 1 opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Christina. The next item on tonight's agenda is item number 4, DRH 22-00051. Sarah Byers at 905 East Warm Springs. Josh, can we please have the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The applicant has requested to construct a second-story addition and change the character defining facade on a property in the Warm Springs Historic District, and it is classified as contributing. The application or the subject property is located on the south side of Warm Springs, very near the intersection of Elm Avenue. It's a very large, deep lot that extends back to a multifamily development on Lewis Street in the rear. The proposed site plan, the existing residence is set back quite a ways from Warm Springs Avenue with a U-shaped drive. It contains an existing residence and an existing detached garage. The applicant's proposal is to construct a 2-story addition on the rear and visible from the front of the residence, which would connect that detached garage to the existing structure and add a second floor to both the garage and a portion of the main home. This is the existing house. It is a colonial revival. You can see the existing detached garage. You can see from the rear view that is actually not attached to the home as it would appear from the street. And additionally, there is a carport that does show up in the existing drawing here that would be proposed for removal as part of the project. So the proposal would add that second story in the location of the garage and again onto the rear of the home, connecting them, adding square footage. The residential guidelines for historic districts have a lot of discussion and guidelines around massing. Staff does find that the massing of the proposal is appropriate. The 2-story addition to the garage and to the rear of the home is certainly in character with the existing home and in character with surrounding properties. What the residential guidelines do, however, is strongly discourage attached garages. Specifically, they find it is not appropriate to design and construct a garage as part of the primary building. Primary buildings should not have garages that access from the front elevation or public right-of-way. With this home not having an alley and only having access on Warm Springs, a garage which is accessed from the street is inevitable and unavoidable. But the guidelines do still recommend strongly that garages not be attached to the primary structure. For that reason, although we do find that massing and height that they're adding to the garage and primary structure is appropriate, we find that the proposal to attach the detached garage to the primary structure is not appropriate and should be denied. The commission could direct the applicant to bring back a revised plan that would meet the guidelines based on discussion tonight, approve the application as submitted or deny the application and ask the applicant to come back with a completely revised proposal. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Josh? Okay, is the applicant present? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 20 minutes.
I'm Brian Lonis.
Annie Lonis.
We're at 905 East Warm Springs. I would like to say, first and foremost, we love our home. We love the historical value of our home. In any renovations to the inside that we've done, we have done what we could to maintain the historical value of the home, even to the extent of remodeling a bathroom, putting the exact same tile back up just because it was worn, but we found the same tile. We were able to put fresh, kind of freshen it up. And we really love it. We love the historical value. We have found the carport is not historical. It was put in the 70s. It's not on the registry. We would like to remove that. As a part of removing that, we do need additional parking space. We also have, 4 children. And so as the gentleman over there just talked about massing being appropriate, we really worked hard to come up with a plan that would maintain the historical value of the home. We really, truly, firmly believe there's no visible, it'd be very difficult, if at all, to see the changes from the street. There's still, the garage is still set back quite a ways on the property and quite a ways from the home, 27 feet, I believe. And so from the viewpoint of the home, bringing the garage forward, allowing us to create some more space in our home for laundry. Our laundry's in the basement. It's really difficult to get down there. So we plan on doing that. So just the functionality of our home is one thing, but also the historical value is another. We work really hard to pair those together. And so we, with Stone Design, came up with a plan that we thought and still do strongly believe maintains the historical value of the home while allowing us to raise our children and have the space that we need in the home. And again, no visible difference. We feel from the street, there's still setback. We research colonial revival homes a lot and have found that is having an attached garage on the side is not uncommon for historical homes. And so we certainly took that in consideration. You have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that the carport being gone and we need that additional parking, the actual structure of the garage will not be attached to the main structure of the home. It'll be coming off of the sunroom, which is behind the home. And so visually, as my husband said, from the street, the effect is very, very minimally different. And our home being set so far back, it really gives the same feeling. I feel like a marriage of both worlds. We absolutely fell in love with our home because it was pretty untouched. There were 50s updates, but the 90s had never got to it. And it was really just historically preserved beautifully. And we want to honor that and honor the fact that it is 30s and get rid of the 70s carport and just kind of open it up to the neighborhood a little bit more. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicants?
Is there a way to delineate between the new addition and what's the historic part of the home that you'll be doing? Or
Like not have it attached?
Or like, can you visibly see where the differences are between the two? Or will it be fairly cohesive?
It'll flow and the plan will be to match the stone from the original side, the right side of the home as you look at from the street to the left side on the garage addition. So it should just marry just perfectly. Sarah's design is really effortless with that.
Yeah, as the gentleman pointed out, he actually had to go to a rear visual elevation of the home to show that it wasn't attached, because from the front, it already appears as though it is. They're equal and parallel with each other, but because where the chimney is a 5, that pops out. And so it, it creates an effect where from the street, visually, the garage already appears to be attached to the home. And so again, we worked effortlessly to come up with a plan that would not change the home from the street view. And so that's why we make sure the garage is set back just as it is. So
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicants? I guess I just have one clarifying question. You are, and this is just for me visually, the existing garage is staying. You're just constructing an addition on top of the existing garage. So nothing is essentially changing.
The existing garage is not being changed. In fact, we're coming forward and jogging a little bit to deal with property lines. So it's not going to be touched because it is part of the historical register. That was a big point when we were talking to Amy at the Historical Society, not to touch that, just to add on so that the visually is the same, but that remains untouched and completely original.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. Is there anyone from the Neighborhood Association wishing to testify this evening? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have 20 minutes.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Sheila Grisham. I live at 1204 East State Street, Boise 83712. And tonight I am testifying on behalf of the Easton Neighborhood Association. 905 East Warm Springs is a contributing home to the Warm Springs Historic District, and it's on the National Historic Register. It's a colonial revival, and it seems to be in beautiful condition. Ina is not opposed to them taking down the carport. We actually think that this will enhance the home, and we are not opposed to an addition to the back of the house. However, we are concerned with the attachment of the garage to the house, and that it could possibly change its contributing status from contributing to non-contributing. And so therefore we cannot support the attached garage portion of the proposal. However, if there was something that could be done that would make sure that the house would keep its contributing status, we could possibly support something different. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any members of the public tonight wishing to testify on this item?
Good evening, Brittany Sigliano again. I trust that if you cannot hear me, you'll let me know. 403 North Mobley Drive, testifying on behalf of Preservation Idaho. Much like Ina, and I believe in a letter submitted from Warm Springs Avenue Historic District, we support removing the front carport in the front of the house, and we support the proposed addition in the back. The carport does appear to be a much later addition to the home and not intrinsic to the home's historic character. The addition to the back would seem to have sufficiently minimal impact on the historic integrity of the home as well. However, we do not support adding an attached garage, as this is not in keeping with the original design, nor of the home that was appropriate, nor of this home when it was built. We ask that the homeowners consider a more appropriate alternative to attaching the garage to the home. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other members of the public wishing to testify this evening? Oh, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Sarah Byers with Stone Design Group, and I live at 3958 South Sumter Way in Boise, 83709. I'd like to state that just like Lones, Brian and his wife Annie, we went through the whole process of what can we do to utilize more space for our kids, a home office, all these checklists to make the home work for them. Really, the inside of this home isn't super large. I don't know if anyone's been in this home. It's really shallow, and so to make this work, just going horizontally with that addition worked quite well. And it also replicating that design on the right side, I feel like really matched the appropriateness. I don't know why that would ruin the contributing factor of the home. I don't understand that aspect, but I'm not a historic preservationist either. So I don't know what classifies for that. But like Brian stated, we're maintaining the existing garage. We're staying out of the current zoning setbacks. We are making this a livable home in this century. So is what we're trying to do. So I just wanted to say that we tried our best to match the design and make it work for the modern family. So
Thank you so much, Ms. Byers. Any other members of the public wishing to testify this evening? Okay, if the applicants would like to come forward, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, or you may yield your time.
Just a couple things. There was mention previously, I mean, we had discussed moving backwards in the house. However, there's as you can see in the photo, she called it a billiards room. Jean Smith, the previous owner, it's our school room for the kids. So there's no really way to be able to functionally go back in the yard. And so I'm glad to hear that you guys are, everybody seems to be okay with the building we're doing in the back. The other thing I guess I'd like to clarify, and I think it came up in an earlier one with the porch stoop, because the original garage is staying, we're not getting rid of it. It's not getting demolished. The garage moving forward is something that could be undone if that was something that was necessary. That seemed to be a concern of yours with the porch. So we're not doing any demolishing. Just trying to keep it age appropriate and functional for us today.
Thank you so much. Any final questions for the applicant or staff? Okay, with that, I will go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing and we'll entertain some discussion or a motion and then discussion.
Madam Chair, I'll start with a motion so we can
Please, yeah.
go to discussion after that.
Thank you, Commissioner Koski.
I'll move that DRH 22000051. I move for denial based on the staff report, but also under the guidelines 4.1.10, which reads construct a new addition that creates an appearance inconsistent with the historic character of the building. That'll be my motion. I'd like to discuss it after the second.
Sure. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Maroney. Commissioner Koski, if you'd like to discuss your motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Please.
I actually really appreciate the careful attention and diligence put into the design. I think I got to imagine Sarah had to work pretty hard to put something together that really on paper from the front of the house looks the same as the existing. But really, if you look at the floor plan, and I don't know if Josh, if you could bring that, or the site plan, if you could bring that up, that shows the proposed addition. I don't know if you can zoom in there a little bit. So if you look at the proposed new garage, that's going in front of the existing garage. And it significantly moves the front of the garage up towards the front of the house. In the Warm Springs Historic District, one of the characters of that district is especially without alley loading, is many of the garages are set far back from the house. And I believe that's a very defining characteristic of this property. And when you view the front of the house with this proposed new garage moving forward, I think that significantly changes the front view of the house. Because it is not, not only would it be attached, or not only is it attached, it's farther forward. So I think, the reason for my motion is, one, it's attached, that that's in the guidelines. We don't have attached garages. And then two, it really changes the front view and the landscape view of the front of the home. And I believe that to be a significant enough reason for denial.
Thank you, Commissioner Koski. Any other comments?
I would just like to echo the concerns of Commissioner Koski. I totally agree with you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I guess, I appreciate the work that was done here on this proposal. We do have attached garages. I mean, there's one further down Warm Springs that is more clearly delineated by having a glass kind of difference between the garage and the house. So I think if there's a little bit more delineation, maybe that would work better here, so that you could clearly separate the garage from the house if you have to do that longer term. But I do appreciate that a lot of work has gone in here, and it looks like from the site plan, not that much space to work with in the back there based on how the existing garage is coming around. So I understand it's a complicated situation, and you do only have access off of Warm Springs, so that kind of limits your access points. But there are a couple examples where they have been attached, but they're kind of delineated, so you can see the differentiation between the two, the historic and what's been added, and that I think would make me feel a little bit more comfortable here.
Thank you, Commissioner Otter. Josh, can you pull up the existing renderings? Yes, that one. Is there any way we can zoom in on that existing photo 4 as well? I can't on my computer. I suppose I'll offer my thoughts. I think this design is beautiful. I think if you were just driving by Warm Springs or walking down the avenue, you couldn't tell that this wasn't attached. And I think that the amount of thought that went into constructing a design that provided the needs of the applicant while also taking the overall character and integrity of the house into consideration, I think it shows. So I personally don't have any issues. I haven't heard any issues about the carport. I don't have an issue with the carport. And yeah, I suppose those are my thoughts. Would anyone else like to offer comments before we call the roll?
Madam Chair,
Please.
I think I agree with what people have said. This plan, there's thought that went into it, aesthetically it's pleasing. I think what's hard for me is if we're looking at this current photo, you see the garage, but it's not a focal part of the house. Like your eye doesn't recognize it as like being of equal importance to the house. And I see the new design as bringing that garage forward and kind of incorporating it into the house. And that does, in my mind, change, the facade of the house and kind of like the way your eye recognizes the functionality of the garage and its prominence. I think removing the carport makes sense. I think that's a great idea. But I agree with what some of my fellow commissioners have said, like the bringing the garage forward, trying to match it to the house. It's not inconsistent with the time of the architecture, but it is inconsistent with this building and this home and the role that it plays in the neighborhood.
Thank you, Commissioner Maroney.
I make one more comment?
Please.
I wonder if we could bifurcate this and approve perhaps the removal of the carport as well as the back addition and not approve the front garage and allow them to at least get started on some of the project and then come back for additional approvals on the garage in the front. I'm not necessarily sure I can propose that, like work through the words of that, but I don't know if that might be an interesting way of doing this.
I was going to offer the exact same thought. If someone would, I mean, I suppose we can vote on Commissioner Koski's motion, but I would be in total support of a motion like that, just to save the applicant the headache of having to go through the process again.
Madam Chair, I got a comment on that. We would love to come up with proposals like that to keep a project moving. But if the way I see it, if we approve something based on not being attached and not having the garage in front, part of the addition, the project changes so significantly that we'll be approving a project that we won't see. And this is a contributing house in a very significant historic street and district. So if I don't believe it can be, you don't make it attached, you don't put in a garage addition on the front. It's a totally different project. And without seeing that to approve, I find it difficult to amend my motion or even come up with a motion that would be appropriate.
Would you be comfortable with a deferral and a request for redesign? Josh, could you also pull up what staff's recommended motions, potential motions could be?
I think by denial, they would go back to redesign anyways. And with the two cases pointed out, the two instances pointed out in my motion, they would need to address both of those, which is the attached garage and the new addition doesn't creates an appearance inconsistent with the historic character of the building, which is changing the front facade. So I'll stay with my motion based on that. And that would be the design criteria to meet to bring it back to staff.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any comments before we vote? Okay, Christina, would you please call the roll?
Otter,
No.
Malloy,
Aye.
Montoto,
No.
Maroney,
Aye.
Koski,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
4 in favor, 2 opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. The final item on tonight's agenda is item number 5, DRH 22-00054, Amy Miller Yost at 201 Northfilm Street. Josh, can we please have the report?
And Madam Chair, before we get started, I'll just state that I'll be recusing myself from this item.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The applicant at 201 North Flume Street before you tonight has requested a certificate of appropriateness to change the classification of an existing single-family home from contributing to non-contributing in the East End Historic District. The property is located directly adjacent to Pioneer Cemetery on Flume Street with a dead end right of way of Bannock Street on the south side of the property. There is an alley at the rear of the property with also a kind of an access and service drive for the cemetery. The site plan, it is a corner lot with existing mature vegetation and existing single-family residence. Supposedly the existing house. There is evidence in the packet and submitted by the applicant of alterations being made to the home over the years, including, it's obscured in this photo, but in this photo you can see a window turned at 45 degrees, which would kind of be uncharacteristic of a home like this. The applicant has submitted, that information that there have been alterations to the original home made. We did find that those significant alterations were made before the survey was performed and were considered when the survey was completed. So when looking at changing status of a property, there's really two areas that code identifies that the commission can lean on to do so. One would be an error in that original survey. That would be that it didn't take into account significant alterations that made the home potentially non-contributing, and it was an error in survey. The other grounds would be additions and alterations that were made after the survey that would make the home inappropriate. And we did not see evidence submitted that supported either of those claims. So our recommendation tonight is that the request to reclassify the property be denied based on the findings in the staff report. So I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Josh. Any questions from the commission? Okay. Is the applicant present? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 20 minutes.
Madam Chair and other commissioners, hello. I'm Amy Miller Yost. I live at 235 Flume Street, just a few houses down from the one on file, Boise, Idaho 83712.
I am Ron Miller. Amy's my wife. I'm also at 235 Flume Street in Boise 83712.
Thank you for your consideration of the certificate of appropriateness to change the status from contributing to non-contributing. It's my opinion that this was put on the contributing list on accident. I think it was an error in the original survey. The survey, and I don't know if you have that in your report, if you can bring that up, but the survey has a quote on it that says, "This residence has had numerous additions, plus windows, doors, and front porch have been altered." And, just from sitting here tonight, that kind of sounds exactly like something that you would disapprove of if somebody was in front of you asking for that to happen to a contributing structure to this day. So when I looked at the house originally, I did see that it was on the contributing list, and it was extremely perplexing to me. I know the lady that's lived there, she bought it in 1979. And she had a little bit of history on it, but I dove back into the Sandboard maps. When I looked at the first Sandboard map that I could find it on, and I think that was the 1903, I'm not sure exactly which one, but it's in the report as well. The image of it is actually the very first survey that I could find, it's a service building. So it's not even a house. And then the next Sandboard map that I could find, which was in the 1907, whichever the first one is, that one was, actually I can find it. That was a square box with a front stoop, and the stoop appears to be between 8 to 12 feet across. It's very similar to the first three houses on Flume Street. They're still intact. They're still boxes with front stoops. Sometime after, let's see, between 1956 and 1981, the porch was changed from a stoop to a porch that spanned the entire width of the house. And that was a very shallow porch, according to the tenant that I bought it from. Then in 1981, her and her partner changed the house. They enclosed half of that front porch, and it is what it is today. So I guess my question to whoever put this on as contributing is what was contributing? What style is the East End considering contributing? We're not asking for it to be off the contributing list in order to demo it. We don't even have that plan right now. It might be something we come to in the future with, just because we don't know the feasibility of the house yet. But if we were to remodel that house and to update it, the foundation is crumbling, so something's gonna have to happen with it, and there will have to be some sort of renovations in order to live in it and make it a house that somebody can actually live in. Where would we start? Do we go back to the service building? Do we go to the house with the front stoop? Do we have the house with the long porch in front of it? Do we have the existing house now that has a bedroom on half of the front porch? And then, I mean, I just feel like then we'd be at the mercy of historical, when all of that's historical, but is any of it contributing? There's even the historical wood isn't there anymore. That was in 1981. So I guess, and maybe I'm ignorant to the years of what's considered historical and what's considered contributing, but I thought that that was closer to the 1955s or something like that. So please let me know what that is. Anyway, anything from you?
I think the biggest factor in it is that designation of it being a contributing structure, much like, you know, the first item, what was that? 00022, that minimal traditional with the front porch. That one, as you alluded to, changes that are that you can't unmake could take it off as a contributing structure. The changes that have occurred to this house are of that nature. These are changes that have been made that you cannot reduce it back to its original state and have a contributing structure. That's the main point I wanted to make. So thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? I did have one and I just missed it.
Sure.
What year did you say the porch was expanded?
We don't know
We don't know,
exactly.
okay.
I do know that the Sandboard Maps, let's see. The deed to the house, phone number, frame maps. After 1956.
Okay.
The facade was remodeled to include the roof line to cover a shallow porch that spanned the entire front of the residence.
Thank you so much. Any last questions for the applicants? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is the Registered Neighborhood Association here to testify? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 20 minutes.
Hi again. Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Sheila Grisham. I live at 1204 East State Street, Boise 83712. And tonight I am speaking on behalf of the East End Neighborhood Association. The East End Neighborhood Association believes that 201 Northfilm is a good representation of our historic district and its contributing status. The home has had additions made prior to the historic district survey being done, and they still found that this home was to be contributing. These types of additions to homes of this era were common. They added onto the home as the space was needed. My understanding is that these types of additions only add history to these homes. ENA is not in favor of a reclassification of this home. If it's reclassified to non-contributing, that means that demolition would become easier. Our historic district has approximately 430 homes within its historic district at this time. Approximately 230 of those are contributing. If we continue to lose these contributing homes, we could potentially lose our historic status. ENA is asking you to please take great care in making your decision tonight, and we ask that you support staff's findings. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Are there any members of the public wishing to testify this evening? Oh.
Good evening, Brittany Sigliano, 403 North Mobley Drive, Boise 83712, testifying on behalf of Preservation Idaho. Preservation Idaho has seen no evidence in the documents presented that support the reclassification of this home to non-contributing. The elements noted that were not done according to appropriate design guidelines, like windows and doors, are easily updated with appropriate materials. Many things can be done to update this home under its current contributing status, and a change in status is simply not necessary. Aside from the architectural elements of this home, which is a typical bungalow in the East End, the history, as Ms. Grisham mentioned, is a very appropriate reason to be a contributing home. Negligence in any past maintenance, which from the letter submitted, there was not much negligence, but however, that's not an appropriate criteria for supporting reclassification and or demolition. This home was considered contributing at the time of the survey and should not be reclassified without any appropriate documentation by technical historic experts that would allow for such a reclassification. Preservation agrees with Ina and the city staff's recommendation for denial of this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public wishing to testify this evening? Okay, it doesn't appear so. If the applicant would like, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you. So the East End Neighborhood Association, and it appears the Preservation of Idaho, seems to think that we plan to demolish this property. That's not what this is about today. Today is about classifying it as non-contributing instead of contributing. The many changes to the front and side elevations have no relevance to the historic preservation. Ms. Scagliano mentioned a bungalow, and when I look at the inventory form, its arc style says no style. It also says the plan is irregular. I don't see the bungalow style in it, and I don't think it was a bungalow to begin with in 1912 when it was built from a service building into a home. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any final questions for the applicant or staff? Okay, with that, I will go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing, and we'll consider a motion. Or discussion.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Maroney.
I move for denial based on the staff's analysis and findings in their report of, where are we? DRH 220054.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion before we vote?
I just feel like as staff outlined, there's no apparent error in the survey that's been proven. And also the alterations were not made after the survey. I just don't see the findings to move it from contributing to non-contributing. And also I hesitate to do that. They're saying, the applicant says, they have no plans at this time to tear it down, but if it comes to that, they might. I just would encourage them to find solutions within the contributing status. If they haven't explored what plans are available yet, maybe they would be a good to explore, what plans they can do within the contributing status before they move it to non-contributing, just in case what they want to do doesn't work.
Thank you so much. Any other comments before we vote?
Well, I agree. I also think, although I do find it a little ironic, because the survey, there weren't any mistakes in the survey, and obviously changes have been made up to this house before the survey was completed. And then we as commissioners are always like, oh, you can't make any changes. And so I see the irony in that. It's a little circular, but I also appreciate that the survey was accurate and all the changes were done prior to the survey being completed. So I agree that we should move forward.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, Christina, would you please call the roll?
Otter,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Montano,
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Kosky. Pape.
Aye.
5 in favor, 1 recused.
Thank you. That concludes our hearing for this evening. We will see you all next month. Thank you so much.